we shut down, we avoid, with this and that. And I think the biggest problem is interacting with other people, because if we are by ourselves, we can, okay, I let go of this, I let go of that, fine. But the biggest challenge, and why actually being with someone is a spiritual school, and this is the only purpose of relationship. The only purpose of relationship is to spiritually grow and heal. And if you realize that, you kind of take away a lot of expectations and you embrace your journey and you say, yeah, because without this person and the reflection of that person or from that person, there is no growth. You can sit and be happy, but once you're around people, you know the truth about yourself. That's the wisdom, the Siddha wisdom. They would send their most advanced students to get married and to be with someone, because they would see how can they manage communication, how can they manage, or are they really ready to compromise, are they really ready to face themselves through someone else? That's the highest training, the highest sadhana, because the result is more and more peace and contentment. The result is less worry, less guilt, less whatever clashes. And a lesson for you is not to avoid the conflict, but to see the conflict as a perfect way to grow in relationship, because it is the conflict resolution that moves relationship to deeper intimacy. The conflict resolution. So not to avoid conflict, to have conflict, but to have it in a constructive way where you can actually resolve issues by talking, by communicating, by understanding the emotional world of the other, the mental world of the other, the perception of the other, the spiritual understanding of reality of the other. And only then you can see how is it matching yours, how can you breach the gaps, how you can negotiate, how you can, compromise on certain things. There has to be this root, this ultimate willingness, which is called commitment. And commitment is to the cultivation of the higher frequency of love and the work that you need to do to be established in that frequency. The work with the partner, where you reflect all that which is of a low frequency. And then you neutralize these currents, you neutralize these shadows, you dissolve your traumas, your corrupt patterns, and there what remains is the high frequency of love and a beautiful relationship, which is the highest blessing to my mind on this earth, because nothing on this earth matters more than love and a true, fulfilling connection. Because if you look at anything else, everything else is transitory. But the true loving connection is beyond this world, because it even after abandonment of the body, it's still there as a frequency, because nothing can be added or subtracted from the frequency of love. It's there, stays always. So, and that's the foundation of the soul, the frequency of love. So while we are going and having all through this layers and layers and, of corruption and distortions, and we're having these growing pains while trying to push through, it seems like we will never reach there. But it's not about reaching, because it's not linear. It's more like a shift. One moment it just shifts and you're there, no problem. And then you have to cultivate it while you are interacting with someone else. And it seems like it's so easy to comprehend it intellectually, mentally, but it's not easy to apply when you are triggered emotionally. And when suddenly this person invokes a childhood memory or a broken scenario or something like that, or a pattern. And so that's where you need courage. Courage to kind of take your moment and look within and admit certain things where you recognize that your shadow is that victimization. The moment you notice you plunge into the victimized state, or you feel victimized, that's the low frequency being, and you don't want to be stuck in there. So how do you take yourself out of that? You're acquire responsibility over what you feel. You own it. You admit it to yourself, and you just say, I let go. I let go of all these corrupt patterns. I release them from my body. I release them from my blood, from my life, from my destiny. And I'm a conscious being. I'm safe. My life is not determined by what happened in the past. My life is determined of who I am now. And that's according to who I am now, I'm having what I'm having in life. And that's the only truth. So whatever you're having, if you're having peace at home, it means you're peace. If you're having loving connection, it means you are love. If you're having understanding, it means you are open and, nurturing. If you have conflicts, it means you're conflict inside. Because you can't have conflicts outside of you if you're not conflicted within. That's the main principle of what's above is so is below. That's the main thing. Because it means that whatever your soul experiences within, that is the projection outside of you. That's in the form of people, circumstances, situations. And again, the way you perceive it, it's only felt inside, from within. That's why nothing is truly right or wrong, because it's only valid for you. Whatever you experience, you decide, you determine whether it's this or that for you only. But you don't know how it is for the other person. That's why we have to be so much open to understand the world of the other person if we want to be related to them, meaning, or connected to them. Because we always relate to people somewhat, whether we want it or not. You have to be very, very concealed and aware and aligned within so that you stop constantly relating. And you only choose consciously whom you connect to. It requires mastery, but it takes time and letting go and pain and dissolution of that pain. But for the majority of people, it's always reflection, looking for validation, appreciation, because the biggest issue is that within, everyone feels empty. And if we cannot find the higher frequency of love, because we are not connected with our soul, we start gliding along the surface and looking for it everywhere else to no avail, meaning there's no resolution to that search, because nothing will ever fulfill that empty void. Because without being consciously aligned with the soul, you'll always feel the void. And so spiritual awakening is that moment when you suddenly feel content. Content means you no longer have that void, even if it's temporary, but you've experienced it. And so now you have to learn how to bring yourself back to that alignment. And that's the process of, self-mastery or yoga, meaning alignment with your soul. Your physical being has to be aligned with the soul. But now you have all these layers in between, which store a lot of corrupt, limited information, which you are to dissolve. And so these layers are the reason for supposedly individual perception of life as suffering. Otherwise, life is just neutral flow. But the way you project this life and reflect it back to yourself makes you feel as if it's fulfilling or as if it's suffering, or as if so. And fulfilling is when things that you want come true. And suffering is when things don't go your way, or you don't get what you want, or not at that time when you want. And so basically what you're trying to do throughout life is trying to breach the gap between your higher existence and purpose and all these like limited layers of wants and don't wants and this and that and conflicting energies which are not even yours. Maybe these are your parental wants or ancestral desires. And so you have to unravel this yarn of karmic baggage and karmic, knots within your own being, because again, your soul is always free and untarnished, but your soul, for some reason, once it borrows this genetic material, this body from your ancestral lines, it starts getting access to this limited information within the collective. It's not that your soul actually has it inside, it's that it gains access to the collective limited clusters of energy information that allow you to have the limited experience. And so it's not necessarily yours, or it's never actually yours, because your soul always is free. It enters here free and it exits free. But while living here, it acquires all this limited information due to the genetic material, the body in which it stays, dwells. And so the soul gets tormented while being in the body if it doesn't understand that it should sever certain accesses or cords to the collective information, or it has to control its space, not in a negative way, but just kind of guard its space by being aligned with the body instead. While during infancy, we're constantly taught to be outside the body, to empower everything else outside. And plus, our ancestral information gets on the way and we start interpreting, misinterpreting, judging, and, seeing things through certain veils. And it just torments us. So everything you experience in this time as a soul in the body is not what you truly are. It's all this, just the different elements which are valid only for this construct, which this paradigm of reality, the paradigm of extremes, the paradigm of all kinds of experiences within a range between these two extremes, and you have freedom to experience all of them. But many of these experiences will cause you, will trigger something from within. And this within is not your soul's. It's just what your soul has connected to while incarnating into this body, or acquiring this body from a specific genetic material, which is the DNAs of your parents and so on and so forth. And when you contemplate deep about this, you everything starts to kind of to matter in a different way. That's also is a freedom in a way, because you understand that a lot of stuff that you experience on the levels of feelings, emotions, thoughts is never yours, never been. And this way you kind of stop giving it so much power. And this is the way to reclaim your personal power. Personal doesn't mean egotistical power. It's the power of the soul, simply. And this also allows you to kind of finally see life, not in this kind of a shut down, closed off sense, but in an open sense. Again, people don't understand what means, what does that mean to open your heart to the, you don't open the heart to the projection, it's absurd, to the mirror. You are opening the heart to your own soul, where you surrender into the flow and you allow whatever experience comes your way to take place, because you're in a surrendered mode. You're not trying to control, you're not trying to force anything, you're not trying to resist anything, you're not trying to get too much involved into anything. And yet you just enjoy the flow. And sometimes you might experience something that might be unpleasant, and yet you still surrender it into the flow. So you stop really judging life, but start living life from within. That's what it means to have your heart open, because open heart means I don't differentiate this flow of life into good, bad, happy, unhappy. I'm just in it. And I know that every day things change. Things meaning my perception, because I can let go and instantly things change. I can decide that whatever is the problem is no longer a problem, or whatever is a conflict is no longer a conflict. But this is so easy, but it's very difficult for a complex mind who is so tormented by feelings and emotions. And that's why these tormented minds create religions, create spiritual schools, flows, different ideas, philosophies. They don't embrace simplicity, because life is your soul, and that's it. And this is the simplicity of being. Once the soul is consciously aligned with the body, and the body is conscious about the soul's presence in it. So instead of being possessed and tormented by all these different limited waves, emotional, mental, etc., you are at peace, aligned with your soul. And once you're aligned, all the limited currents, resisting currents, they subside, they just dissolve, because the high frequency just simply instantly dissolves that limited paradigm of existence. But if you do not sever cords, or do not limit the access of that to that limited information from the collective into your body, into your space of consciousness, you might be still tormented from time to time, because you allow that to happen. To cut the cords means you can do visualizations, you can help your mind with this sort of work where you're visualizing, but in reality, it's nothing to be cut or severed. It's actually your ability or strength to keep your focus within the natural flow, with this alignment, or when you're focused completely in the body, when you're grounded, when there are just simply no thoughts and no emotions. And if you notice that something is coming, you say, it's not mine, go and never come back, you never belonged here, and focus on something that is really nurturing you. Because there are certain aspects of this limited reality, or even subtle limited reality. Say, there can be some ideas that can inspire your soul, or your soul likes to entertain those ideas, even though it knows that it's limited, but it keeps kind of the focus still on the soul. And many people, for example, like you maybe read one sentence from a scripture, and it reminds you of your soul. So that instantly shifts your focus within. So that could be a crutch, that could be a way. But again, the more you evolve, and evolving is like like that rocket ship which just abandons that fuel which has burned out.
Yeah.
So that it gains momentum, speed, and frees itself from all that baggage, right? But the same thing, we are here to understand what limits us, what causes us this and that experience. And once we realize that, you become unfazed, because you understand that you can't change the paradigm itself. It is what it is. And while we're incarnated here, we have these experiences, but we're always free if we just knew that, if we just realize that. And when we stay aligned with the soul, nothing can go wrong. Things go wrong and into again extremes only when we align with limited ideas of self, with emotions, with thoughts, usually shadows of someone else or something else. And so we disperse life within the projection, and so our body suffers loss of energy. A prolonged loss means pains, means health issues, etc., decay, aging. Now, when you want to keep your space free, you have to be focused on that high frequency of your being, which is your soul. The foundation of the soul is the frequency of love. Yeah. You know, so you can still operate in the physical reality, still have visions, but operate through that alignment. Then you become wise, or people call you wise in this life, because you know how to operate wisely. What does it mean? It means that you feel when to act, how to act, when not to act, when to wait. You feel the flow, that now this is right, and you go for it. You live so-called intuitively. Intuitive living means I'm aligned with my soul, and I feel energy, and I feel this dance between my soul and the projection, and how I operate in the body from the soul through the projection in a balanced way. That's the highest mastery on this earth, where you can still be aware that you're the soul and act wisely while being in the body and have a balanced life. That's the only spiritual achievement on this earth, which will materialize as abundance, as balance, as contentment, longevity, glow, and happy connections, you know, balanced connections or happy relationships. But it can't be 100% ideal, because again, this is the reality of extremes, but you will be able to handle whatever imbalances or fluctuations wisely, with discernment of the soul, because now the soul lives through your eyes, ears, and body. So now the rest of the people don't even know what they're doing here, and they imagine and create ideas. But so once you're out of this body, you're again free, and you let go of whatever you experience as if it were a dream, and you continue your eternal journey wherever your soul takes, meaning it's not your soul, it's you. Wherever you go then, otherwise, by frequency, by what's important for you, is up to you. But oftentimes people are bound to this limitation because they feel like they haven't fulfilled something. And once you accomplished and are balanced on this level, you can easily leave, and you're already free anyways. So what are these bogus ideas about doing something to be free? This is to keep us in control and bound to this earth. Most of these ideas are absolutely false, and they keep us being guilty, shameful, and think that we owe somebody something here and we need to come back, or we need to prove someone something, or we need to set it straight, or we don't know anybody anything. And so when we are out, we're free, and we go where we're supposed to go. And evolution is only in realizing that. And some souls, they can come back but consciously, not being just drawn by their low frequency kind of paradigms, which they still carry with them while withdrawing. But they're actually bound by those frequencies. So they are not actually fully withdrawing. They're just a little bit out and again back in. So what happens is that most of the beings cannot see how simple this all is, how eternal we already are, whether we do anything on this earth or don't do, because we are a soul, which is free, eternal, never dead, never born. It's always there. Just acquired a costume like this body and then left it, period. And then there is, of course, subtle evolution. The soul can experience other realms and so on and so forth. We're free. Can go and have any experiences we want. We can evolve just while being more on a subtle level, or again plunge into a physical level. But everything we created about this and higher realities is mostly rubbish. It's something to control. It's fear-based. It's resentment, vengeance-based. It's not based on love. And even that which is based on love is still tarnished by those other things which inflict fear or invoke fear and some kind of negative emotions with it. Yeah, I am loved, but you know, I have to do this and this and this. So none of this is true for the soul. And many people might not like it because they just think that they just want to be righteous in whatever their limited paradigms they exist. There were some forces which created it as forces of the natural world. Certain forces gain momentum during a certain moment within the cycle, and this is how it goes. But it's the collective consciousness that drives it. At the beginning of every cycle, I think I posted this video about cycles, but it's like at the beginning of every cycle, and again, these cycles are only relevant for the Earth. This particular frequency of Earth that we know of now, where I'm speaking from, it's it's of a certain frequency and experience, because once you shift cycles, like you're in a different type of, let's say, if we speak from Hinduism point of view, right? Because this type of information is kind of correct to a certain degree, or whatever perspective you look at, like Iron Age or, you know, Golden Age. And then so, but these ages, they are not really happening. They're almost not happening on this Earth, and this Earth will be like very different frequency. So the Earth itself goes through this cyclical change of frequency. And so when we're speaking about higher eras, it's mostly existence on the soul levels, where the physical appearance is like kind of you're coming and going. And even the body might be very different appearance of frequencies, less gross and more subtle. And there are other basically paradigms. So during other times of the cycle, you are aware about your multidimensionality. That's what I've written in Siddha Tantra book. You're aware of the multidimensionality, while you can be in the material and the spiritual or anything in between. So, but once we are at this point of the cycle, the perception of reality becomes so limited that it starts pressurizing us, and our soul starts feeling uncomfortable so that it wants to purge and go out again. That's why we gain this kind of a desire to search for supposedly liberation. But it's absurd for the soul to begin with, because it's only because the soul kind of lost the awareness of how it got in here to begin with and how it to exit. So the whole quest becomes like a spiritual journey or some kind of a philosophical path. But in reality, it's very easy. Anyone can go to bed any night and they go out for some time, but they're unconscious. The difference is that when you're spiritually aware of your soul being in the body, you start gradually being aware how you can exit consciously. That's the difference. That's when you realize how free you were and you have been and you will always be. And so, but until then, you think that you're on some kind of a journey. You think that you need to do something to end up somewhere, because you employ the mind. For the soul, there is no journey. It has never started. It will never stop. It's just existence, eternal existence. And even while the soul is here in the body, partially it's still there in the subtle, and it's difficult to contain that even sort of idea for our brain. But because again, the brain processes limited information, the mind tries to navigate between the subtle and the physical. But every night we go to sleep, supposedly, right? That's the time when our soul is supposed to ascend to the higher realms, recharge, rejuvenate through the deep sleep and come back. But unfortunately, most of the people fail to experience deep sleep for longer than maybe just 10, 15 minutes or half an hour tops. And that's why they can't replenish. And so they age. The aging process has sped up and people just decay and lose their vitality. But, and let's say their dreams are tormenting them because they don't address the corruption and trauma. So the dream reality is supposed to be emotionally fulfilling reality, and that they can't be emotionally fulfilled because during the dream they experience torment, because while they're in an awakened state, they can't or refuse to face their traumas or deny the existence of these traumas. And so I think that this age is the age of absolute mental confusion and corruption of the matter, which is the body. That's why the decay and aging is so unnatural, but it's the result of the corruption of consciousness, which results in the fast corruption of the body. So that's why it's called the age of death. Death meaning not that type, because there's actually no death. It's eternal life flow. But it's basically what we mean by death is the corruption of the body, the premature corruption of the body, because the soul is so far away. It's kind of existing in the body, but it's so misaligned that all other low frequency aspects of it to which it connects kind of take over, they possess. So the soul's voice is almost unheard, but the voices of these corrupt emotional patterns and mental ideas and ideologies, they take over the body. And we think that, oh, it's so rare to be spiritually possessed. Spiritually, yes, but most of the people are constantly possessed emotionally, mentally, and intellectually. They're constantly possessed. They're also possessed by objects when they attach themselves to certain objects. But the worst possession is on a subtle level, because you can't control it, the possession by emotions, by the shadows. And people think that spiritual possession is something like outside of them. It's impossible to have anything outside of you when you're free and you are fully aware of your freedom. The possession happens through these openings within the energy space, or the energy body, or the conscious space, where this information or these clusters, they gain access to you, and you connect to them somehow through frequency, through whatever is, through your ideas about life. You connect to them and you become possessed. Everyone is possessed continuously. So this could be called the age of possession. And I know people hate these things because they're just so much drawn to what they want to believe in, that they will never come out, because they are the slaves of ideologies, beliefs, and all these different ideas that it's just normality. None of these things is normality. 99% of what we know of life is abnormal for the highest kind of perception. But it is what it is because it's a disease state. So everything we experience now is a disease state, is a corrupt state, is what we are not as souls. We actually experience everything what we're not. We experience limited life, corruption, and all. That's what we are not on a higher level, because on a higher level, we're free, effulgent, immortal, never born, never dead, because we can go and exist through any paradigm. because there are many other paradigms, but okay, we know of the earthly paradigm. The difficulty is to become aware of what I'm saying. And most of the people cannot even fathom. They deny. They deny because they need to hold on to something. They need to hold on to something because otherwise they feel like they're lost. But they are lost anyways. And this is the only reality we're here to face. And so only few can recognize it, just because they maybe are more mature to let go of limited ideas and thoughts and beliefs. And it's much harder to let go of feelings and emotions because, but at the same time, they all are tied together. Because if there is no ideology and belief, the emotion would kind of not be there, or there wouldn't be a connection. So when there is a connection, there is a, how would I put it? There is a, it's like a mechanism. It keeps on going. It's an engine. If you take one, the other drops, dissolves. If you take the other, the same thing happens. So we have to stop living through stories and pay more attention at what we feel, because the feeling will lead us to understanding the corruption deeper, because we have to dive into the corruption first in order to liberate ourselves. That's why in the book I wrote that what binds us liberates us, because that's the clue. Because if someone reminds you that everything you are bound to is not you, or whenever we dive into this limited earthly paradigm, we experience everything that we are not, we are truly not. And all this highly evolved, transmissions and writings tell us just of that. For example, if you look at the song of Shiva, Shivoham, I am Shiva. What does it mean? It means I am the eternal soul. I am not my mother. I'm not my father. This shows you, it's a little bit like a metaphorical or poetic representation. But what it holds the seed of truth, that whatever you know of yourself, whatever shadows you acquired from other people, all these archetypes, we can talk about it scientifically, psychologically, okay, archetypes, these are information. I am not my brother, I'm not my mother, I'm not my sister, I'm not my relatives, I'm not my kin, I'm not my, country or anything. These are all limited paradigms which kind of tag me or give me a certain number of existence on this earth, that I am 864th or whatever, is just an example being, but it has no relevance to my soul, because my soul doesn't know numbers. My soul is free from that. My soul is just never born, never dead, because it's an illusion. And you might ask me, how is it an illusion when I feel it? Yes, you feel it. But after all, once you awaken to the higher perception of the soul, instantly you will see how this limited reality is so not you. And the moment you shift your focus within, you can start perceiving the deep, blissful contentment, your natural being. And that in reality is the frequency of your soul. And when you align with the frequency of the soul, you start realizing, oh, I'm feeling very free now in that perception. So it's all just about the shift. And so you start cultivating, and through that cultivation, you start gradually realizing the path out, and you start seeing that I'm always free. Once I'm aligned with the soul is always free, that none of these limited constructs exist for me then. That's how you realize the freedom of your soul. This what I'm saying you now, this is to open your heart even more to your soul. Because after all, the only true commitment we have on this earth is commitment to our soul. The soul commits to itself, to its freedom, and it teaches the body to be aligned with it through trials and tribulations, and to realize that the body is there very necessary because it's like a reflection of the soul. But no matter how many thousands of years it can even live in potentiality, it doesn't matter, because the soul will always remain free and can abandon the body at any point. Consciously, unconsciously, of course. We're not talking about now unconscious abandonment, which is agony of death, which we know of now, but it's a freedom of exit, and there's nothing romantic about it. It's just what everyone can do. They just don't know how. And we do that every night, but unfortunately unconsciously. Not everyone. Some people are deprived of deep sleep, even because it's so tormented by the, material, I don't know, the physical reality and emotional reality, that all their focus is just on something else, and so they can't really even dive deeper into the deep sleep. No, they know yoga nidra, which is or any other ability, or meditation, yoga nidra, meditation, amanaska, samadhi, all the same. Is just your ability to consciously go into deep sleep state while not losing your awareness. So that's something that rejuvenates people, replenishes them, but most of the people don't know this. Yeah. So from this moment on, you will start feeling much more opening in your chest, in your heart area. And when you perceive the frequency of love, is the love to your own soul. And that translates also to other souls.